think I have an idea. All right, thanks, Jordan. Well, right here in the Valley, health officials are working on getting COVID-19 tests to everyone who needs them. We have 2 confirmed cases in North Alabama, and Huntsville Hospital launched their brand new fever clinic today if people want to get checked out. Our Sydney Stallworth has the latest numbers.
My job is to prepare for the worst and pray it doesn't happen.
Huntsville Hospital is doing just that, opening its brand new fever flu clinic today to address the needs of the community without risking bringing potential COVID-19 cases into the hospital itself. We're told around 250 people in the Valley came to the new clinic without the high risk of infecting others.
That's 250 people that didn't show up in the ER or didn't have access to a doctor, right? It was 250 people who needed care.
The hospital expects to see about the same number of people each day. So here are the latest numbers. Today, around 25 new COVID-19 tests were collected. Huntsville Hospital has sent off well over 200 tests to the state lab in total and is waiting to get 164 tests back.
We have 0 patients in the hospital with COVID-19. We have yet to have a single inpatient with COVID-19.
At this point, 2 people in North Alabama are confirmed to have the virus.
The 2 that tested positive were both outpatient. Both were sent home to be for self-quarantine.
But some patients' results have not been determined yet.
We currently have 35 patients either in the hospital in the emergency department that are waiting on test results.
Hospital officials are still urging you to stay at home if you're sick and call your doctor if you feel like you might have coronavirus symptoms.
There's enough evidence to believe that if we don't manage this appropriately, we would have a major problem.
Many of the people who were seen at today's fever flu clinic were confirmed to just have the flu, so officials say you should still get your vaccine. Hospital officials say their next step is working on that drive-through testing. They want to get that done in at least 2 locations, and we're told you're going to need a physician's approval in order to get one of those tests. Putting the Valley first, Sydney Stallworth, WZDX News.